That's my new thing this year. Awesome. All right, what you guys got?
Jim, I would imagine you've looked ad nauseum at some of the fourth quarter struggles you've had this season. Is there a common thread that's run through them that you've seen?
No, I mean every game's different. I mean, I think one thing that's that might be similar is that depth has been an issue for us this year. Um, so maybe that's affecting us later in the game. I mean, that's no excuse, but the way games go, there's going to be ebbs and flows to every game. There's going to be big plays early in the game. There's going to be times that you give up plays early in the game that maybe get overlooked. End of the game is just so much more scrutinized, and it's so much more critical. I thought I was more disappointed in our last game with the touchdown we gave up when we had to go on the field at the 5-yard line. One play, and we missed a quarterback, and that's one of those situations. There's a huge turning point. We can hold them to a field goal right there, which we ended up doing. I guess it was middle of the third quarter. It was 16-13, and we took the field at midfield, and we went 3 and out. And I really think that was where the game was really critical. If we had given up a touchdown there and gone down 2 scores middle of the third quarter, that would have been tough sledding. But got to stop on a 4th down, and then we had to go back on the field and didn't get the job done in those times. I mean, it's football. The quarterback made an insane play on one of those. We got plenty of opportunities to get him stopped even before he makes those kind of plays. Just got to keep battling.
Jim, Malcolm's played, I think, all but one play. How valuable is that durability as you guys are dealing with all these injuries and his leadership?
Yeah, we talked about the depth. We'd like to rotate guys probably a little bit more than we've been able to rotate them up front. But guys in the back end generally don't get chances to rotate. I mean, it was very similar last year with Malcolm. Some of his plays that he missed last year were because we were way ahead and we took him out of the game. He's played a multitude of positions for us. He's a veteran player, means a lot to our leadership, and he really his ability to hold things together in the secondary has really been important to us because he's been our constant. There's been changes at just about every single other person, but he's the guy that's been out there through it all, and our ability to get some wins in the last few games has a lot to that, a lot to that consistency that he gives us.
When you have a player like Avante before he's been this versatile and go to different positions this early, and how do you determine where that guy is best suited long term?
Yeah, it reminds me of Cortland Finnegan. I had Finney early, was first couple years in his career in Tennessee. Came in and played nickel, and then moved outside the corner, could switch back and forth. He was a good tackler. He had speed, similar size, toughness. Finnegan didn't play safety for us, but he played safety in college. So he had a lot of that those same kind of attributes. Like I just got done talking about Malcolm, and one of his strengths is that he can play so many positions. I don't look at it as a problem with Avante. We'll figure out what's best for him, what's best for us. Over the course of his career, but that flexibility is very helpful from a defensive standpoint.
Josh Johnson's been on 12 different teams, hasn't played any for about 5 years, but does he have the kind of athletic ability that can present problems?
Yeah, most quarterbacks in the NFL do now. He's made a lot of big plays last couple of weeks. Almost led him to 2 victories over the last 2 weeks that he's been a starter. Big win against Jacksonville, and was driving the team late, and had an unfortunate interception late in the Tennessee game. But his ability to keep plays alive with his feet, similar to what we've seen from a lot of guys this year, from Cam Newton to Deshaun Watson, and now this week. So that'll certainly be part of the equation. But that's really not the only thing. He's made some really nice throws. You can see the fact that he's been around the NFL for a long time. Those guys that have been with different teams, He's very composed, knows how to run their offense, and you know, there's a reason that he was on. Even though he didn't play a lot, there was a reason he kept catching on with another team. It's because he's talented, and we're going to have our work cut out for us.
What did the big nickel give you versus the base in that matchup? Why did they go so heavy with the big nickel?
Which?
Against Houston.
Oh, against Houston. Wow. You know, that's been a constant for us over the last couple years. And our safety situation didn't always sort of allow for it over the course of the year, but, you know, getting Corey Graham back and getting Trey Sullivan some playing time, and then we talked about Malcolm doing those things, just gives you flexibility. I mean, you look at our offense and the way we use our tight ends. They can be inline blockers. They can also be wide receivers. You know, I mean, you guys have talked about that a bunch, about 12 personnel. Well, if you have multidimensional players on offense, you need multidimensional players on defense. That package doesn't work if our safeties aren't good tacklers, if our safeties can't play in the box and can also play outside. So, you know, that flexibility is a big part of it to minimize some of the matchups that the offense is trying to get.
Jim, what has Chris Long given to you on and off the field this season, particularly?
Yeah, I'll just stay on the field, because off the field, I mean, that's. I mean, you could probably spend 2 hours talking about that, not just on our team, but in the community and over the course of his career. You know, he's really been the epitome of a pro player, very unselfish player. And he's made big plays for us when it's counted. Last year, that was certainly true. And then this year, that's been true. You know, that we talked about our fourth down stop, but that sack strip, Houston hadn't turned the ball over very often. And that sack strip and getting the offense the ball at midfield was another huge play in that game. To get 2 sacks in an important game against a first-place team late in the season, you know, that was a great performance from him.
Is it rare that when 2 30-plus-year-old defensive ends get more snaps, they actually seem to get better? Better than him, their numbers since Barnett went down?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different things that go into that. I still think it would be more ideal to be able to keep guys better rested through the course of the game, but they've been up for it. They're both pros, and I'd put Brandon Graham in there, even though he's technically not. I don't think he's over that 30-year. Oh, he did? Okay, so all those guys do a good job taking care of themselves, being available to play on a weekly basis. They've all battled injuries. You know, Mike went out of the game early this career. Chris, earlier this year, came back and helped us lead us to a win. Chris Long had the same thing last week. Those guys know what time it is. They know that they need to be available for their team, and they do everything they can to make themselves available to make those kind of plays for us.
Jim, how important was it to get Jordan Hicks back in the mix? Talk about versatility, depth.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't back full speed, but he was back, and you know, we've had that situation before where guys are able to come back. I think it was Avante the week before against the Rams. He wasn't full speed, but he was back, and that presence meant a lot to us. Jordan's a really important part of our defense, not just from a playing standpoint, from a leadership and a play calling standpoint. You know, so it was certainly good to get him back on the field in I guess you'd say limited role that he was out there. You know, it was a little tough for him later in that game. He got a little bit fatigued, but always good to have those guys back out there.
As a follow-up to that, has Jordan taken the step or given you what you were hoping for this year from him?
Oh, well, the end of season questions, I mean, I think that does a little too much. You know, I don't want to say disrespect, but it takes away from our focus this week with Washington. You know, we're going to have to go play our best in Washington. And then after that, hopefully we're still playing. And then after that, when we're finished playing, we can talk about season in the whole. But like I said, Jordan's an important guy to our defense. You know, he's battled some injuries this year. You know, that's just where we are right now.
Coach,
You had no
considering that,
contributions from three guys that you picked up mid-season, particularly last week against the Texans and Trayvon Hester and Deshaun Hall. What have you seen from those guys? And I know you just said like you don't want to look forward to the future, but did they put themselves in a good position?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's looking forward. That's just saying what they're doing for us right now. You know, they've all been guys that, you know, didn't have teams at the beginning of the year, and they've all stepped in and contributed in some way. And that's what this league is all about: getting an opportunity and contributing. You know, I think, you know, Cravon in particular has really solidified that nickel. That nickel position's a really important position, and it's a tough position to play. You have to be a combination of a lot of things. He's been a good tackler for us. He's been tough. He's been quick. He's been able to play zone. He's been able to play man. You know, so all those things go into that spot. He also had a little bit of experience too. You know, I played that position for Chicago last year. You know, so that had helped get him, you know, sort of up to speed. But I think that's probably been the biggest one. Trey made a big play in this game, and Hall made a big play in this game. Hall hasn't had very many opportunities, but only had 4 snaps in the game, but came up with a half a sack. And I want to speak for Phipp, but I've enjoyed watching him run down on kickoffs too. I mean, he's played hard, and that big body on kickoffs and special teams he's found a way to contribute. So that's another tip of the hat to him.
Joe, I know corners are primarily evaluated on their coverage ability, but your guys have done a good job with the tackling, particularly after you had to dig deep for you know, into your depth. How important has that been?
Well, it's just limiting big plays. Every position has to be able to tackle. A lot of the run game now is geared toward putting hats on guys inside, double teaming guys inside, and leaving corners unblocked. And if you can't make a tackle, you're going to look bad on defense. You know, I think you're probably right. Those guys have solidified that. We haven't always been great at that over the course of the season, but over the last few games, I think you've seen significant improvement there. You know, Russell has really tackled well for us, not just in the run game, but in the passing game. Made that big 4th down tackle, played zone defense, made him throw up, throw short. You know, you know, there's a lot of different philosophies and everything else, but when you play zone defense, it only works if you have the discipline to stay deep, make them throw short, but then you can also step up and make the tackle. It doesn't do any good to, you know, make them throw short if they can run for the 1st down. But, you know, I think that's been a big rallying point. We mentioned Cravon, and then Avante has also been a strong tackler for us, has made a couple big stops.
2 more, please.
Coach, if things don't work out for you guys this weekend the way they need to, there's going to be outside of this place a fair amount of could've, would've, should've, could've when it comes to those Tennessee and Carolina games. How much of that, if at all, occurs inside the building? If things would have gone differently in those Tennessee and Carolina games.
Yeah, I mean, those end-of-season questions I'll just leave for the end of the season. I mean, we're critical of our performance every week, so we don't wait until the end all of a sudden say, okay, we should have done this, or you know, could have done this. I mean, we're evaluating not just after every day of practice. We're evaluating in between series of games and things like that. You know, I noticed guys have tried their very best over the course of the year. I've been proud of the effort that we've gotten from our guys. It hasn't always been consistent, but I think they've battled, and we're in a position this week that we need to go out and get a win against Washington team that you know, that has played a couple close games against a couple good teams over the last couple weeks. Okay.
First time, Jim, real quick, the Redskins, first time you played them, different quarterbacks. You mentioned Josh a little bit. Have they changed offensively? I know Jay Moore, if you think to the going back to the start of the season, losing guys, bringing in Peterson, shifting his offensive philosophy, has he had to do that again?
You know, there's been some subtle changes. I think their run game has, or they're not running anything different than they didn't run. They're not running anything that they didn't run early in the season. They've just accentuated a little bit more. I mean, you have a mobile quarterback. Their run game has evolved over the course of the season. They're sort of playing to what Adrian Peterson's strengths are. He's more of a north-south vertical runner. They've run some of those kind of things. I think that's just coaching in general. You sort of morph over the course of the season. You find out what your formula is. You know, when they went through 4 quarterbacks in 2 weeks or whatever, I think, yeah, about 3 weeks, 4 quarterbacks in 3 weeks, you know, it's tough to find that formula. But over the last couple of weeks, I think we got a pretty good handle of what they're trying to do. And, you know, we got some good players we have to stop, starting with Adrian Peterson. You know, one thing that maybe flies a little bit under radar was Houston was a really good running team. And running back aside, they had had success with all the running backs they had put in there. And our ability to get the run stopped in that game, you know, allowed us to I won't say it kept them from controlling the tempo of the game. So I think that had a lot to do with that, and we're going to have to do the same thing this week against Washington. All right, thanks, guys. All right, hose those down.